10 affirmations for the exquisitely empathetic pharmacist. I am compassionate and supportive. I have healthy boundaries. I am fully present when I speak to my patients and colleagues. I help my patients and colleagues feel seen, heard, respected, and understood. I am practicing within my scope with integrity and confidence. I trust my knowledge, instincts, and training. I feel motivated to work every day. I am happy to be a pharmacist. I care for myself so I can care for others. I make a meaningful difference in the lives of others every day. That ends my list of 10 affirmations for the exquisitely empathetic pharmacist. Welcome to the Pharmacist's Voice podcast, where we talk about pharmacy topics and careers. I am your host, Ohio pharmacist Kim Newlove. This is episode 351, and the show notes are on thepharmacist'svoice.com. We are talking about exquisite empathy today. We'll talk about what it is, we'll position it as an antidote to compassion fatigue and burnout, and we'll go over those 10 affirmations that I opened with so you can use them as a tool to bring exquisite empathy into your life. If you are a pharmacist who experiences compassion fatigue or burnout, you need to listen to this episode. I'll start with two stories. These two stories gave me the nudge that I needed to go ahead with this episode today. They're about compassion and boundaries. Compassion and boundaries. Here's the first story. I was at a restaurant last Friday, October 3rd, with some pharmacist friends. We were out to lunch, and my sister Kelly happened to be in town, so she joined our group for lunch. Early into our time there, it was right after we had ordered. Our server stopped by our table and she let us know that there would be a delay in getting served because one of their staff, a bartender, had fainted. All their staff there at the restaurant were trying to help this bartender. Our group identified ourselves as pharmacists and offered to help. The server, to our surprise, declined. It so happened that a table full of nurses were in the building having lunch and they already offered to help. This is good news for the bartender. So, one by one, we watched the nurses file in front of us and head towards the bar. We were concerned, of course. We hoped that the bartender was fine, but the nurses were on the job and two ambulances had just pulled up to help. This all happened, it seemed like really fast, within 5 minutes' time. So we just stayed put at our table, we hung out, and we waited for our food. What else could we do? My sister, who is not a pharmacist, she's a geologist by training, looked disturbed. My sister looked disturbed. Like we should all be rushing to the bartender to do something to help. And I told her that the nurses and the EMS had it under control and that we should just stay out of the way. We cared, but we knew that we were not needed, so we just stayed out of the way. And then a few minutes later, our food got served. My sister still looked a little uncomfortable, like she needed closure or permission to eat. I told her that it was okay to eat, go ahead and eat. The pros were on the job, not to worry. There was nothing we could do. As we ate, we saw the ambulance head out with their lights flashing and the siren wailing or blaring, however you call it. And after that, I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened to the bartender. I did ask, but they didn't know anything. I feel at peace about my reaction. I cared that the bartender got the help she needed, but I didn't need to be the person who helped her. It's okay to have boundaries. I cared, but I stayed out of the way. And that's the end of the first story. Now here's the second story. The very next day, it was hot and sunny. My sister joined my family and me for a trip to a pumpkin patch. The pumpkin patch happened to be in southeastern Michigan, about half an hour from my house. Southeastern Michigan is just a stone's throw away from where I live. So we got to this farm and we got into a covered wagon for a hayride to a pumpkin patch. If you can imagine this, there was a farmer driving a tractor, and the tractor was pulling two covered hay wagons. I was in the first of the two wagons, and there was a wagon behind us. Now, even though the sun wasn't beating directly down on us, we were still uncomfortably hot. There's just not much air moving around when you're going 10 miles per hour in a covered wagon. on a hayride. There's just not. So if you can imagine this, eventually we stopped at a pumpkin patch to pick some pumpkins, and one of the older adults, a woman in the other wagon, passed out. Her daughter started calling out for help. So the farmer started asking people in the first wagon, my wagon, does anybody here have any medical training? We need some help. The woman's daughter was shouting out that she needed cold water. I need cold water. Well, I had 2 cold bottles of water with me, so I just grabbed one and started heading over. On my way over, I asked the tractor driver, the farmer, if he could call 911, and he was already on the phone with them, so that was good. When I got to the other wagon, this older adult did not appear to be breathing, and people were dumping cold water on her head. I was mentally going through my ABCs: airway, breathing, circulation, and starting with the airway, I noticed that her airway seemed to be obstructed by all the water that everyone was pouring on her head. It was running down the front of her face. I heard gurgling noises, like she was inhaling water or something. So we tipped her head forward and we were about to wipe her face and then lay her down, but then she suddenly woke up and sat up straight. Her daughter and I went through a couple of orienting questions like, what's your name? Where are you? Can you take a sip of water? And so on. We asked her a bunch of questions. She seemed immediately with it. My sister was with me and she offered the woman an orange. I thought that was very sweet. It had some sugar in it, right? And that would help if she had low blood sugar. Good idea. Long story short, this woman was dehydrated, hungry, and overheated. By the time this older woman drank a few sips of water and answered our questions, the farmer's dad showed up with a nurse and a gator. If you don't know, a gator is a small vehicle that can cover rough terrain like pumpkin fields, right? You often see them on TV, like NFL games. If there's an injured athlete, they often drive them off the field in a gator. It's like an open golf cart. Long story short, the nurse took over and I left. They didn't need me anymore. The farmer's dad and the nurse drove that older woman to the ambulance, which was waiting in the farm's driveway. And about 30 minutes later, the ambulance took off with lights flashing and sirens wailing. I knew she was in good hands. And that's the end of the story. In both stories, I cared and I showed compassion, but I didn't get overly involved. I stayed in my lane as a bystander. These two stories happening back to back, Friday and Saturday, really gave me the push that I needed to publish this episode. I've been wanting to publish an episode about compassion fatigue, but instead of making an episode about compassion fatigue or burnout, I really wanted to talk about what we do want, which is exquisite empathy, the right amount of compassion and boundaries. As pharmacists, we need to seek exquisite empathy. We need to seek to have the right amount of compassion and boundaries. Just in case you're not familiar with the difference between empathy, compassion fatigue, burnout, and exquisite empathy, I'll go through the definitions of all four. I am not an expert on this topic, but I think that we could all use some training on exquisite empathy. If I can just introduce it to you, I think I'll be doing my part. You can research it and possibly get training on it after you listen to this episode. All right, let's get to some definitions. I have 4 definitions right now. Empathy is the ability to understand the feelings and thoughts of another person by putting yourself, quote, in their shoes. So it's putting yourself in their shoes. Empathy. Let me describe compassion fatigue next. After caring for people in distress for a long time, you may feel desensitized to their needs. You'll show up for your job, but you are a less empathetic version of your former self. That, to me, is compassion fatigue. Next up is burnout. According to the World Health Organization, WHO, burnout is an occupational phenomenon, not a medical condition. My summary of their definition of burnout is workplace stress that has not been successfully managed. According to the WHO, it is characterized by 3 dimensions. Number 1, feelings of energy depletion or exhaustion. Number 2, increased mental distance from one's job or feelings of negativity or cynicism related to one's job. And number 3, reduced professional efficacy. That's it for the WHO's three dimensions. They sounded very general to me. I don't know about you. So, what I did was I applied them to a pharmacist. I am thinking of a retail pharmacist, somebody who's sitting in their car before work, dreading going into the building because they don't have the energy to work in that pharmacy anymore. I think we've probably all heard stories about people who sit in their car before work and dread walking in. This type of a burned out pharmacist snaps at their patients and their colleagues. They make sarcastic remarks all day long. They expect every day to be a bad day because all the other days before it have been bad days. Why would this one be any different? They are stretched way too thin, and there is no way to fix it. What they went to school to learn how to do and what makes the boss happy are so far apart, they can't believe they're in the same profession anymore. Every day is the worst day of their life. Does that sound like a burned out pharmacist to you? Sounds about right to me. Now let's get to the fourth and final definition in this episode: exquisite empathy. What is exquisite empathy? It is different from basic empathy, which is just being able to put yourself in someone else's shoes. The term exquisite empathy describes a protective practice that is used by mental health therapists. This is something that I had not heard of until I started doing research on compassion fatigue. Exquisite empathy is the practice of being deeply compassionate and emotionally attuned to others while maintaining clear, healthy boundaries to protect against burnout. I can only imagine what mental health professionals hear every day in and day out over years and years of time. There has got to be a way they protect themselves. And I think it's exquisite empathy. They are deeply compassionate and emotionally attuned to their patients, right? But they have clear, healthy boundaries to protect themselves against burnout. How can we apply this to pharmacy practice? To me, exquisite empathy for pharmacists is helping a patient or a colleague feel seen, heard, respected, and understood while staying in our lane as a pharmacist and thoughtfully protecting the boundaries of pharmacy practice. People ask us all the time to step outside the boundaries. Exquisite empathy is saying no, we stay in our lane. During my research for this episode, I read the phrase, exquisite empathy is an antidote to compassion fatigue and burnout. That really got my attention. If that's true, we all need to know about it. We need to embrace our compassion for others and be emotionally attuned to them, but maintain clear, healthy boundaries. In theory, it's easy, right? But in practice, it's going to be a daily challenge. If you have not tried to do this, you might need some tools. We all need tools to protect our mental health and prevent compassion fatigue and burnout. I have heard that self care, mindfulness, meditation, and reflective writing can be antidotes to compassion fatigue and burnout. So, I would like to also propose that affirmations can help too. Affirmations are one more tool. So, I wrote 10 affirmations to help you retrain that inner voice in your head and help you become an exquisitely empathetic pharmacist. And by the way, I learned about affirmations and writing affirmations from Dr. Jerry Levin's book, Affirm Yourself: 15 Principles to Retrain the Voice in Your Head. Dr. Levin was featured in episode 336 of the Pharmacist's Voice podcast in June of 2025. He was part of this year's Pharmacist Authors series. At this time, I'll read you the list of 10 affirmations. These are the same 10 affirmations that I opened the episode with. I deliberately put them at the top of the episode so you can play this episode and hear them anytime you want, first thing when you press play. Here we go. These are 10 affirmations for the exquisitely empathetic pharmacist. I am compassionate and supportive. I have healthy boundaries. I am fully present when I speak to my patients and colleagues. I help my patients and colleagues feel seen, heard, respected, and understood. I am practicing within my scope with integrity and confidence. I trust my knowledge, instincts, and training. I feel motivated to work every day. I am happy to be a pharmacist. I care for myself so I can care for others. I make a meaningful difference in the lives of others every day. That ends my list of 10 affirmations for the exquisitely empathetic pharmacist. Read those 10 affirmations to yourself twice a day, morning and evening, for a month. And then, if you want, let me know how you're doing. My email address is kim@thepharmacistvoice.com. And that does it for episode 351 of the Pharmacist's Voice podcast. We talked about empathy, compassion fatigue, burnout, exquisite empathy, and affirmations today. I hope this episode was helpful to you and that you will try these affirmations for a month. The holidays and the beginning of the year 2026 are coming up. They can be kind of rough for retail pharmacists. I just want you to know I see you. I feel for you. I was there once too, and I want you to hang in there. These affirmations just might help. Thank you for listening to episode 351 of the Pharmacist's Voice podcast. Please visit thepharmacistvoice.com to read the show notes. In the show notes, I will type out these 10 affirmations. I'll provide a link to Dr. Jerry Levin's book. I'll include my social media links and more. There's always a lot of links in my show notes. Everything you need is on thepharmacistvoice.com. If you would like to reach out and connect, LinkedIn is my favorite. Feel free to connect with me over there. I write, I narrate, I podcast, and I coach. Everything's talked about right there on my LinkedIn profile. And if you're interested in starting a podcast, narrating a book, telling a story, or something else you think I can help you with, message me through the contact form on my website, which is thepharmacistvoice.com. Go ahead and share this episode with your pharmacy friends and subscribe to or follow this podcast on your favorite podcast player and YouTube to get each new episode right when it comes out. Thanks for listening today. Take care of yourself, and I'll talk to you next week.